All right, here we go with another episode of Coffee with the Founder. I got my coffee cup today. I'm rocking Moana today. Uh, got my coffee drink. And of course, we have another outstanding guest here with us, colleague, a friend, actually a true sister, Dr. Marguerite Penick-Parks. Doc, we have been doing these coffee talks as a way to introduce the people in our WPC network, our WPC family, to one another, actually, because we all see each other a lot of times at the conference. Sometimes we attend each other's workshops, but we really don't sometimes get to know how people got to do what they do exactly, so on and so forth. So that's what the coffee talks are all about. And I'm happy you're here today. So we want to get started right away by asking you, who are you and what do you do?
Thank you very much, Eddie, and thank you for being on today. My name is Marguerite Penick-Parks. I'm currently a professor at the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh in the Department of Educational Leadership and Policy. At the moment, I'm teaching mostly graduate classes, people who are going for their master's and or people who are going for their doctorate in superintendency to become licensed teachers. I'm in the College of Education and I work with teacher training. My fields tend to be social justice, multicultural education, and literature. I also teach young adult literature and children's literature to people who are getting their library media science degree. So I've been at Oshkosh for 18 years.
18 years. So I want to ask you about the literacy part, because I think a lot of folks probably need to know and would want to know some of your tips, some of your suggestions for young readers around issues of diversity and issues related to that. But I want to first ask you about teachers and teacher preparation, since you've been there almost 20 years teaching not only future teachers, but now future administrators, including superintendents. So can you talk about the diversity, the state of the teacher and administration field in reference to diversity? What have you seen over the years, and what's your thoughts about what it's gonna look like, how it's gonna look over the years to come?
Okay, well, I've actually been doing this for like 30 years because I was at Ripon College for 9 years beforehand. And in that time, it's predominantly white. I mean, almost everybody that I've taught, I think in my 18 years at Oshkosh, I've had 4 or 5 people who are defined as Black or African American, a few more Latino and Hmongs, because we have a bilingual program in both Spanish and Hmong. But for the most part, I see predominantly white students. I mean, my superintendent courses that I've been teaching have been all white. Principals been predominantly white. I would say I've had 1, 2 Latinos, Latinx, and a few, once again, who identify as Hmong, but predominantly white, and I don't see that changing. I mean, as we know, that's what the dominant field is. 70% are white women teachers, and sometimes I have all white women. I will get more men in my master's classes, but I also had a doctoral student who did a study on why don't so many women who get their superintendent license actually become superintendents. And it was very interesting about that. Family don't want to move and all of that. So even though we're licensing a lot of women to be superintendents, a lot of them aren't actually practicing. So it's remaining predominantly white male in superintendents.
Okay, now the reason I asked that is just yesterday I was in a conversation with someone talking about their research, or actually I was in a conversation with someone that was in a conversation with someone who was talking about their research about how kids of color learn better from Black teachers, Black educators, basically. And yes, I think that research is out there, seen some of it, and support that research. But the numbers, like you just talked, after 30 years, even though we know Black kids may learn better from Black teachers, that's not what they're going to see, at least in Wisconsin, we can say. So my next question to you then is, after 30 years of teachers, administrators, superintendents, primarily white folks, and then the superintendent, primarily white male, what's your sense of their competence, their commitment to diversity, their willingness to embrace and really work with what is an increasingly diverse population of students, even though the teachers, administrators, and superintendents are becoming more diverse?
Eddie, you know, when we go out and talk about the book that you and I did with Allie Michael, The Guide for White Women, one of the questions you always ask is, can the white woman do it? And I firmly believe that the white woman can do it. I think I was a good high school teacher. Was I great? No, I mean, I can sit back and look at all the mistakes that I made, but I can do it. But what happens is the white, and especially the white woman teacher, need to be willing to do their work. And when you talk about having the cultural competency, I see two big barriers. One is not recognizing they need to do the work, that they're colorblind, that they treat all kids the same. And so if they're not willing to get over that, then they're not going to be good teachers in a lot of ways with their students who aren't white. The other big barrier I see is a system, because the system doesn't give the teachers the time with which to work on culturally competent lesson plans. They make them do things that are, you know, just by the book, get through. Because if I'm going to change the way I write my lesson plans, first I need to be trained, then I need practice, and then I need time to do it. It's very easy to write a regular lesson plan. No problem. Read the book, do the discussion, answer the questions. And a lot of teachers, our student teachers who go out there all ready to change the world, get sucked into the system. And for me, that's one of the harms. It's not that we aren't preparing them to go out there with the desire or with the cultural competency or with the books. It's that they get sucked into a system that doesn't support them when they do want to, very often.
Well, that's refreshing news that we may have a willing population of students, student teachers, prepared, ready to go, but unfortunately facing some structural systemic barriers. So one of the things that can be structurally a challenge are books, literature, right? An area where you specialize. And I think an area that parents and community members can fight back is they can get their own books at home or from the library. So when you think about maybe challenging some of these structural difficulties around accomplishing diversity and really the preparation of our teachers and the support of our teachers who are even willing to do this, let's talk a little bit about books. Let's say I'm a parent of a young reader and you had to give me 3-5 books that I could do at home. Can you just give me a sense of that? Let's say, I mean, I know you can do elementary, you can do middle, and possibly even high school. Can you break those categories down? Let's just say we're giving people some stuff they can fight back with at home. All right, and we're in shelter in place, we're in summer learning mode. Doc, give them something they can do at home.
Okay. First off, one of the most important things, and there's a lot of this in the literature, is that books are both windows and mirrors. And that what books have to do is not just let you see what the world is about, but books have to let you see yourself reflected. And so when you're looking at collecting your library together, you have to have a library that does both. Because if people, and I'm going to talk African American now because that's what's in my head, because that's what we've been doing in preparing the next book. But when an African-American boy only sees whites, male or female, in superiority, and they don't see themselves reflected, then they're going to think they don't belong. So they need to see themselves reflected, but they also need to see what's out there. So we talk about windows and mirrors, and then Rudy and Bishop also talks about in sliding glass doors. So for me, look at your library. Is your library both windows and mirrors? Does it both reflect your child and reflect other children? One of my students last night did a fabulous project on the book Undefeated. Kadira Nelson just put out the book Undefeated. It won a bunch of awards. And it's a wonderful book that talks about the discrimination against African Americans, but it also just features all these prominent African Americans. You can use that book at every level, because what this student did was she then went and looked up the names of all the people who are pictured and is having her students do research projects on all the famous artists, all the dancers, all the politicians, everybody. So you could do something like that at any level, middle school, high school, whatever are. So Undefeated by Kadira Nelson and Juan Alexander is without a doubt.
Yeah.
I would say anything by Jason Reynolds. And he has books both high school level and the middle school level. And he just writes beautifully. And especially for Black boys, again, he gets a lot of really positive imagery. What we know is there's stuff out there. It's just that people don't know it's out there. So if I was to send you somewhere, I would say to go to the Children's Cooperative Book Center website. And Children's Cooperative Book Center out of Madison, Wisconsin has a wonderful website. It will have 30 multicultural books every kid should read, 30 multi-books every high schooler should read, books on social justice, bilingual books. And those are some of the types, So when I think about what have I read recently, I read a really great book called Genesis Begins Again on colorism. And I loved it. I read a book, Dig, which won a bunch of awards this year. And these are both high school. And Dig deals with white supremacy and racism. And so that was a nice pick, that it's not just, it's everybody that goes there. There's so many. Tulsa Burning, about the Tulsa race riots. Yeah. There's so many that are out there. But the thing for me is, it's not so much just having the kids read the books. Our problem is teachers aren't comfortable talking about the books. One of my class right now, she actually said, so I was going to do this, and she picked up a book that was about race with her third graders. I'm sure they could see my face blushing. I was so nervous and so scared to do this. And then they had this wonderful conversation. So it's not just about reading the books, but it's about being comfortable having discussions so that the book and the content of the books don't just stay in the books, that they become a window and a mirror for discussions. Do you want more books?
Oh, I tell you what, if we got more books from you, we would be here the entire time. So we will make sure that we connect people to your website towards the end, as well as link some of those websites that you're mentioning. But I like the ideas of mirrors and windows, just giving people a sense of things that they can do at home, because sometimes structurally, like you said, the teachers can't even overcome some of these barriers. The parents can't overcome some of these barriers. Right now, what we have is an unprecedented opportunity to homeschool. Like, I call it truth homeschool. Like, nobody's there saying you can't read that book. Nobody's there saying, right, oh, that book's not appropriate or it's not in the curriculum. In fact, we have an opportunity now, parents, community leaders, to really embed some other things into our students, our kids' learning. And that's why I wanted you to give people a sense of some of the great opportunities out there. Now, let me ask you about parenting, because as a white woman, you've raised some white kids. And what I wanted to ask you about is, what has been your philosophy? What has been your challenges, your successes in raising white kids in a culturally competent way in what I think we can fairly say has not been a really diverse environment that you've been operating in? What's been your strategy? What are some suggestions you would maybe give to parents like yourself in predominantly white spaces, but wanting to raise kids with some cultural competence, some understanding of justice, equity, diversity, white privilege, so on and so forth?
Well, one of the things that you have to understand that falls into my philosophy is the fact that I am older than a lot of people, and I grew up in the South, and I grew up in a segregated South. And so then I was part of desegregation and bused to an all-black school. So part of, I think, how I handled my kids is the way my parents handled me, which was to have discussions. There wasn't anything hidden. There wasn't negative. It was just kind of, this is what's happening. And then they supported everything that was happening. So when I moved to Iowa from North Carolina, oh, by the way, I'm rocking my Chapel Hill, North Carolina coffee cup. When I moved to Iowa, it was, my mom said that was my culture shock, because of the fact that coming from a school that was at least 50% Black and white, and I had been moved to the Black part of town in my school, to a school that was almost all white. Actually, we only had one Black family in Iowa City in my school. It was very different for me. So I had to, when I raised my 4 daughters in Ripon, Wisconsin, which at that time had 4 stoplights, I had to make a conscious effort to expose my children. I had to make that conscious effort to talk to my children. And we would go to the South every year to see my parents, and they would notice things, like my parents were in a nursing home, and my daughter said to me, "Mom, all the people in the nursing home are white, but all the people working here are Black." And it's like, okay, let's talk about that. But the fact that they noticed it meant that everything we'd been talking about was something they had known. We watch the news together, we talk about the news, we talk about current events. And then I think the other thing that has impacted on my children actually the most has been the White Privilege Conference. All 4 of my children have attended and graduated from the YAP and Youth Action Project. And for children coming from small town, I remember the first time my oldest daughter attended, because she was the first one, of course, she said she was sitting in this room and they did this privilege wheel, and that she was sitting with a gentleman who was Black and who was gay and came out of a big city. And she said it just struck her that she'd never been in a room where there was so many different, there was so much diversity, and how much privilege she had in that room. And so their exposure to YAP just became critical for me to give them the experiences that I can't in a small town. But I think the biggest thing I did was talk to them, not allow them to become complacent, not them to allow them to not open their eyes and see what's going on in the world.
Yeah. So, Doc, can you talk a little bit about COVID-19? You know, being a professor, I'm sure the university has been shut down, you're shelter in place, and give people a sense, though, of what that's like for a college professor, because as a diversity consultant, being shut down means that, you know, my work went down, so to speak, you know, as far as the places and spaces I would go. And I'm wondering, for college professors, even though you're not on campus, what happens? What happens to the workload? I mean, what happens when the community or the university shuts down? How are you doing with that shutdown? I mean, I'm wondering how someone takes care of themselves when we're asking and trying to get a sense of how people are taking care of themselves when that happens. So give us a sense of how you're doing with that shutdown. And then lastly, what do you think is next? I mean, what's gonna happen you think 6 months from now, are we going to go back to school in the fall? I mean, what kind of things are you thinking about? What's going on in your head in reference to as you get ready for, your summer break? And then are you preparing for fall courses? I mean, give us a sense of the world of the university professor.
Well, I'm actually preparing for summer courses. It's, you lose connection with your students. Even though I Zoom with my students, even though if they have questions, I will just open up a Zoom and get with them face on face, especially teaching social justice, which is so based in the discussions I would have with my students. You just can't have that discussion as well online. And so sometimes I would record lectures, because that's what you do. You record a lecture and then they watch it and then they ask you questions. I mean, do I make them watch the lecture? I mean, am I demanding them to watch the lecture? The other thing with my students was when we all got sent home, and we are sent home, we're not allowed in the buildings. My students, especially my grad students, are all teachers. So not only did they get sent home to now teach online, but a lot of them have their own children at home. And so the stress on them to be trying to figure out how to do it online. On high school, K-12, one had kindergartners is trying to round up, 20 kindergartners on a Zoom meeting and teach their own kids. They were extremely stressed out. And then pedagogically, they didn't agree with what they were being told to do. Some people are being told, get online every week with all your students, and other people are being told, just give them a pack of work to do. And so they didn't always agree with what was happening with them. So trying to help them navigate all of that and give them an opportunity to discuss that was difficult. For me, I think it's the loss of connections. It's the loss of connections with my colleagues. All of my colleagues are on my same faculty floor. And, one of them just had a baby, and all of this, and we can't even see them. We can't talk about things because when things would happen, we would talk to each other, or when current events would happen. So I've lost all of that with my colleagues. My saving grace was a friend of mine, Dr. Delano at St. Norbert College, put together an online tutoring program, and she invited me to be part of it. And I think those first 2 weeks when I was by myself, because I live by myself, completely by myself now for 2 weeks, since this whole thing happened for the most part, giving me something to do, which I knew I was helping, because our online tutoring program ended up getting to 20 states and over 600 tutees and over 300 teacher candidates and retired teachers as tutors. It gave me a feeling that I wasn't just going through the motions. I was making a difference in the lives of other people who were struggling through COVID. That really helped because it gave me a purpose. And I think that finding that purpose, not just the purpose of going through my regular days, but being able to help others and make a difference in what they were going through. That really saved me going through this, because otherwise it's just, okay, now I'm going to grade papers. Now I'm going to make a lecture. Now I'm going to open up a Zoom for an hour. Although the good thing about the Zoom was doing it at night, we had lots of kids joining us. So I got to see all my student kids. They were always coming on. That was kind of fun.
Yeah. Doc, what do you think is next? I mean, is school going to come back? You mentioned summer school and summer learning. I mean, I'm not sure how that'll work, with the Zoom and all of that, but primarily next fall, what are you thinking? School's back in September, or are we going to look at a possible 2021 start to the school year?
I think schools are going to be hybrid. I think there aren't going to be any more large lectures. I think anyone who has a large lecture is probably going to still stay online. I think people are going to be able to have class face-to-face, unless there's some other big thing that happens between then. But I think students are going to be given the option, because you're going to have a lot of students who have compromised immune systems, or maybe living with somebody with a compromised immune system who isn't going to want to come to campus.
Yeah.
And so I think we're going to have to be able to offer options for those people. I think, like, I have sometimes small classes, and I said, so my small class as a grad class only meets 3 times. So if I have 10 students in a room that's made for 45, you know, I think my class may be able to go ahead 3 times. You know, the most recent data says it depends on how long you're exposed, not just how much you're exposed to. I wear my mask when I go in public, and I have a feeling that if I'm face-to-face with those 10 students, I'm going to make them wear a mask. But that's what I think, because I don't think, and I think that's happening with faculty, that if faculty don't want to come back because they may have an immune compromised, or, you know, they're over that, you know, 60 or over 65, I think schools are going to have to give people those options, even if they decide to go fully face-to-face. My biggest thing that I say is, how can they? How can we take all the students and put them in a dormitory? How can we take all the students and have them eating together? You know, that's the part that I don't get. I think classes can be spread out, but I don't know how we're going to put them in dorms or feed them without having them all together like this. So I don't know. I know all the schools and all my friends, they're talking about it. You know, our school is making a plan to go either way. You know, what if we have to be fully online? We're fully online for summer. So if you have to be fully online, what are you going to do? What classes can you open up, sort of? What classes do you really want face-to-face? We're being asked to prepare for a variety. I just can't see the dorms or the eating areas. That's the part that I just don't know how we can control.
Yeah, well, this is helpful because I think, you know, some of us look at college in reference to maybe having, like in my case, some relatives whose kids are in college, and, you know, maybe knowing, you know, folks like yourself who are, you know, working at the college, at the university level. But this is helpful to kind of get a, you know, good look at, again, like the day-to-day, every day, like you said, from the dorm life to the cafeteria life, the library, the classroom. So I appreciate that. Can you tell us about the next 10 years of your life? I mean, what are you working on? What do you got cooking? What's on the horizon? But also your website, your consulting, the things that you're doing, where people can find you. Can you give us a sense of how people can find you and maybe reach out to you to get more information about whether it's literacy or some of the other things that you're doing?
Okay. Well, as you know, we're working on our next book, and the next book currently is titled, we don't know if it's the end title, Teaching Beautiful and Brilliant Black Girls. We hope to have it to the publisher in June so that it will be coming out next year. And it's a lot like the Black Boy book, but it's also very different because you've got that feminism clash going on between white women and black girls. So, but it's very good. We have some phenomenal authors who have written some incredible chapters for that. So I'm really excited about that. The next one I'm working on, because I like to do a lot with that culturally responsive pedagogy and lessons, is we have teachers, as you said. I want to do a project, I got it in the process. I want to sit in a classroom and observe 6 teachers who are actively engaged in culturally responsive pedagogy to see what they do, how to do it, what works, what doesn't work, how the students respond. Because we have so much stuff on, you need to do this, you need to do that, but we don't have research out there that says, this is what a teacher is doing. Let's talk to the teachers, let's watch her. So, and that one's currently called Co-Conspirator in the Classroom, because I'm moving beyond allyship and trying to find 6 teachers who are really, truly making a difference in their classroom so that other teachers can learn from them. I'm starting that project this summer. I sit on the Coretta Scott King Committee for the American Library Association, and this year I've been sitting on the Virginia Hamilton Lifetime Achievement Award. Mildred Taylor, roll of thunder, hear my cry. And one of the things that I want to continue doing is to continue finding books, writing reviews on books, and helping teachers find good books that will open up those good, honest, difficult conversations in their classroom so that teachers feel comfortable doing it, because teachers have to practice, teachers have to do it. But that's one of the things in my website is I'm opening up a blog where when I read books, I will write about them so that you can come and see the books that I found and why I either recommend them or don't recommend them, and giving ideas on what to use and how to use it. So that's really is building up the blog and my website. Published yet, but it's called BAE, B-A-E. I always say I'm the original BAE. I was BAE before Beyonce was born, because I've been BAE since I was a baby, which is what my brothers called me, was BAE.
Maybe that's where Beyonce got it from.
Huh?
Maybe that's where Beyonce got it from.
Maybe. And it stands for Books, Action, and Education.
I love
and
it.
The website should be up with it next month. Books, Action, Education. That's me. That's what I do. Books, Action, and Education.
I love it. I love it. I love it. We want to do a little lightning round with you. I want to test your mother of a teenager knowledge here. You know what I'm saying? Lightning round, you just give me 15, 30 seconds response or just a answer to the question. All right. So the first thing is, what comes to mind when I say white teacher?
Me. I mean, you know, me, my students, everyone I've taught over the past several years, meaning well-intended, but not always aware of their white privilege.
Are you going to go with Will Smith or Denzel Washington?
Oh, Denzel. Denzel. All the way.
Are you going to take Whitney Houston or Tina Turner?
Tina Turner.
Tina Turner?
That was a hard one.
Yeah, how about Janet Jackson or Beyonce?
It's got to be Beyonce.
Oh,
I have a daughter. I have a daughter who could answer every trivial question on Beyonce. It's got to be the bae.
All right. How about Justin Timberlake or Justin Bieber?
Oh, Timberlake.
Are you going with Lady Gaga or are you going to pick Taylor Swift?
Oh, Lady Gaga.
Oh, wow.
Definitely.
All right. Well, let me ask you this. If you were in a lip sync championship and you had to pick a song you know every word to, what would be your lip sync song?
Caroline in My Mind by James Taylor.
Oh, wow. Okay. How about...
I actually took sign language this summer and I learned how to do Caroline in My Mind in sign language.
Oh, wow. Okay. You've had 4 daughters. What's the most read kid book that you have read over those years of parenting?
I have 2. One is the Going to Bed book by Sandra Boynton, and the other one is Paula Zelinsky, the pop-up or the one with all the movement in it, On the Wheels on the Bus.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The most read book to me growing up was The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. That's the one my father read to me most often, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis.
All right, Doc,
all white people.
One last thing we've been asking people is during the shelter in place, a lot of people have been reading more, watching more, listening to more. So we're wondering, is there anything that you've read or listened to or watched during this shelter in place that you would add to our list that people should check out, that either taught you some things that you enjoyed or just help you escape?
The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison, which I've been reading for our book. Everybody should read that book. That's just a must read. And the other is, and I'm going to get the title wrong, Anti-Racist, Being an Anti-Racist, How to Be an Anti-Racist. I can't remember the exact title. I could say you probably have a book sitting right there. Yes, that book. Yes, even just the first chapter got me, and I'm enjoying still going through those. So those are the two. I mean, Toni Morrison, I'm a high school English teacher, read it years and years ago, but now since I've been doing all my work reading it again, it's just such a book.
Yeah. Let me ask you one last bonus question. What's it like to be the grandmother of twins?
It's wonderful. It's especially wonderful when I share their pictures and everybody says they look just like me. It's also wonderful because one of them is named for me. But it's just so much fun. But they're 6 months old now, and the best thing is watching their minds work. You know, they're now at the point where you can see they see a toy and they want it. So they start to reach for it, as opposed to just looking at something. Just watching them grow up and not having to be in charge of them is just wonderful. I just get to enjoy them.
Yeah, well, congratulations on that, Doc. We appreciate you coming on and sharing your wealth of knowledge. And of course, over almost 20 years of knowing you, collaborating with you, I've always appreciated you inspiring and supporting me and the conference over the years. As long as you will come to the party, you're invited to the party.
Thank you. The conference has changed my life, and it changed the lives of my children.
We appreciate you, Doc.
And my teachers.
We appreciate you. Wakanda hug from afar. Much love.
Love you.
Peace.
Bye. Peace.